This is the work session of the Natrona County Commissioners, Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024. Our first appointment is with Mr. Michael Brown, Natrona County Parks Director. Michael, do you want to introduce Mr. Hauser?
Yes, on the phone we have Mr. Ben Hauser with Advanced Geotech. He's our geotech specialist for the Casper Mountain Trail Center build.
Good afternoon, Mr. Hauser.
Good afternoon. I apologize I couldn't be there in person today. I hope this will work.
No, it sounds loud and clear from our perspective, and if you can't hear something, let us know. I appreciate your being available on short notice, so I just thought that it would be beneficial to the commissioners and our discussion to have you available so that the commission can both understand where we are and so we can decide how we're going to move forward. Michael, go ahead. We've talked a little bit about the parking area, but maybe just a second of background and then dive into whatever you want to have us know.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. On August 26th, I submitted a memo kind of summarizing some of the issues. What we come to find out is there's some unforeseen soils that cause pumping when you drive heavy equipment across it due to some underground water that's migrating through the area. With that, and with Mr. Hauser's on-site review of that, he submitted a proposal request to Caspar, and they provided pricing. Since then, we've had a revised proposal request adding a French drain. We're waiting on pricing on that, but the original change order request number 10 came back from Caspar at $168,976 to basically excavate down 30 inches in an area that I think is approximately 100 by 80. I think it's a little bit bigger than that. And remove that material and then put in a higher quality material that with a geogrid at the base. The current plan for Mr. Hauser is to excavate 30 inches, install a geogrid material at the bottom of that, and then provide, I believe, hold on, let me get here. Provide 24 inches of J-base and 4 lifts. That's condition compacted and tested, and then top that with an additional 12 inches of W-base. So this is to provide a little bit of cost savings on the drainage rock and the second layer geogrid. And then in addition to that, a French drain would be installed on the downhill side or the easterly side of the area of concern. And that would be tied into the existing culvert to provide that water an exit out to daylight so it can exit and not migrate through the rest of the property where the building and the handicap parking is. Mr. Hauser and I did speak last week about my concerns with the handicap parking area. That's some concrete work. And last week or the week before, I did visually see a telehandler causing pumping in that area. And that raised some concern because we're going to have concrete there and we really don't want that moving. So Mr. Hauser can probably go a little further into that as to what we might be able to do, or if that's going to be a concern with this new design with the French drain in the area. There were geotech bores drilled in July of 21. As far as I could tell, most of these were approximately 50 feet north of the area concerned. So there's, I'm not sure how valid the data from those would be for this area because it does transition quite a bit, and Mr. Hauser can probably describe that a little better as to what the materials we have and what the concerns are. Are there any questions for me before we have him clarify anything?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. The first question is, I think that there were two options. One was excavating down approximately 30 inches and bringing in, importing dirt, et cetera. The other option was only digging down, I think, I can't remember if it's 12 or 18 inches, and trying to, I think, stay on top of that organic material. Maybe that's just a layperson's version, maybe it's wrong, but was that basically the other option? And if so, is it off the table at this point?
So in the first proposal request, the first option was over excavation with 2 layers of geogrid and a drainage material. The second option, was to use an on-site stockpile of excess soil. That was a big pile that was there. That is gone, so that option went away. I'm not sure if there was actually an option. So I believe that's the option you're talking about, where basically they filled 24 inches with the material that was on site and then put W-base on top of that with
Well-
a single layer geogrid.
Well, one option was going 30 inches deep, and the other option was going half that depth. And maybe Mr. Hauser recalls, but I just saw it in one of the emails from the last couple of weeks, and maybe it was from Mr. Hauser's firm. I'm not sure on that. Mr. Hauser, do you know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't recall that option where we were looking at going shallower than 30 inches. And that may be the case, I just don't recall it.
Okay, so can one of you explain to the commission why we don't have boring tests in this area and farther to the south as well, where I guess to the point where the existing parking lot is?
Yeah, I can approach that. The original plan in 2021, when we did the bores, was to determine a best location for the building. It wasn't for the site work. So there were 2 options for the building. There was one to place it where the old building was, and bores 1 and 2 were drilled there. And then there was another option to orient the building in the northwest where this new parking lot is, north of this problem area. And that one, due to the bores, it was kind of determined that that building would have to be on pretty significant piers, where putting it where the old building was just an over excavation and bringing in engineered fill material with the footers, which was more of a economical way of building the building. And Mr. Hauser can probably expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, so, Mike, I would agree with that. And then when the additional borings were done, they were targeted, for the new building layout once the site location was kind of picked for the building. No borings were requested nor targeted any of the parking areas. Probably that is to do because, we were looking at a gravel surface parking lot at that time. And the existing one that was there didn't seem to have any significant issues at all. And you might be able to speak to that a little bit more, Michael, but I don't recall there being any major maintenance concerns with that existing parking lot.
No, you're correct. The old parking lot, as I call it, really didn't have any issues. It drained well. Very minimal maintenance was done on that over the 20 years it was there. It's pretty solid material underneath that section, as the drainage is on the north side of that parking lot, so it didn't actually go through that parking lot in the past.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
One more, Commissioner Laird, from me. It seems to me that we might be rushing into this change order before we really know the extent of the problem, including your anecdotal observation of pumping in the concrete areas. And so it seems that some additional testing of this area, of the area where the concrete parking is going to be, and then also I think that it's been raised as a potential concern over where that dirt pile was, which would be kind of to the, would be to the southeast of this area we see. So have you guys given thought to doing some additional testing so we can not have another surprise like this?
I have not at this time. I referred back to the design team to come up with a solution. I did not hear about additional boring at that time. It was just this change order request.
No, I don't think, I'm not suggesting there's been other discussion. I'm saying, well, I guess the answer to my question is no, there hasn't been discussion of additional boring.
We can ask Mr. Hauser if within the design team, the civil firm and the geotech discussed that when they were preparing proposal, that I was not a part of writing up the proposal.
Well, Mr. Hauser, what do you think about doing additional boring so we can see what, I think you did some proof rolling on one side, but maybe we don't know if it's been done, if we've done enough of it?
Yeah, I would echo your concern, and I understand it. When we did proof rolling originally, there was some soil stockpile in the way. We knew that it could potentially extend further to the east than where we could proof roll at the time. And maybe some additional proof rolling is probably warranted there as we go to the east, to determine the extent of that soft spot. I wouldn't do it with borings or other, ways of checking the stiffness of the soil, because a proof roll is probably the best method of determining what's soft and what's not right now.
And Mr. Chairman, we did, when Mr. Hauser was out there, they did take an excavator over there and we cut a couple of slit trenches down to the clay. I think it was over 30 inches we went to look at the material that was in those areas. I can't recall if we did 2 or 3. Do you remember, Mr. Hauser?
I believe it was 2. Yes, thank you for reminding me of that. So we did look at what the soils were that were problematic. Again, further to the west where the soil stockpiles were not currently located.
I know both Commissioner Friel and Commissioner Laird have questions. Gentlemen, I didn't see who indicated they wanted to go first. Commissioner Laird?
So here's what I'm looking at. Nobody on this commission knows about sinking parking lots, nor would they have thought about it. So we hire people to do that, to make sure that what they're building up there is going to withstand, the test of time. So I'm concerned with the answer you gave about this whole thing with the parking lot. It's a gravel parking lot, but didn't we know we were going to pave it? Didn't we know where that was going to be a paved parking lot early on?
No, there was never intention to pave the parking lot.
Is it going to be paved now?
No, I don't believe so.
So it's still going to be a gravel parking lot.
Correct.
So what is it that you think is the cause of this? I mean, this sounds to me kind of strange, because the way I'm hearing it from other people involved is that you park a bus over there, it's liable to sink in clear up through its tires. So this is like something that happens to amateurs, in my opinion. I don't know how much this whole thing's costing us, over $3 million. But who should have figured this out?
That's a good question. Topographically, there's some visual deals right there at the edge of the old parking lot. It was always marshy. My staff did bring that up during design about concerns there. With the installation of the storm drainage culvert, it was assumed that that would mitigate the problem. I'm not a professional in soil matters, so maybe Mr. Hauser can clue us into, the afterthought of what maybe we should have done beforehand. I believe the bores indicated that, within a foot or so, there was you know, typically dense, dry to moist, clay sand, which is a fairly solid material underneath the organics. In this area, the organics are a lot deeper than I think anybody expected.
But a core sampling there would have told you.
Possibly. I know once they did the grading and laid the gravel, I believe Mr. Hauser's firm did some compaction testing in there. I don't recall the actual results, but I believe they passed, and then, you know, some time goes on, water migrates through, and now we're in this, soft area.
Well, I've seen this happen before. And invariably, it's always been somebody assumed something or overlooked something. And I'm just trying to figure out who it is that, when they realized what they were going to have to do with the building, is substantial, isn't it?
What we had to do with the building?
No, the building is substantial. It's not going to sink down into the ground, is it?
No, I don't believe so.
Because they put special reinforcement under the building. Because they knew there was an issue with the soil.
Yes, they did over excavation, and then indications from the foundation from the old building did not show any heaving or cracking. We just had moisture in the
Well, but
crawl
my
space.
point is that understanding that ground there and then ground a little bit in that area may have similar problems. And now here we are. Well, I forgot what's the number they want to have fixed, Mr. Chairman. I forgot what that was. 186,000. 168,000. So I'm like a homeowner, you know. I don't know anything about building houses. So that my contractor comes and tells me my driveway's sinking in, I would have figured they would figure that out. Why are they coming to me for the problem? I don't know. I didn't know how to test that ground or do anything up there. We're hiring all of these people, and they've all missed this. It's obviously something that's there. Now, did you miss it yourself? Did the contractors miss it? Did the architect miss it? Who missed it?
Honestly,
Somebody missed it. Everybody miss it? I mean, I'm just curious.
well, I don't believe we missed it during the design phase, with civil engineer and architect. Staff did raise the issue that this is a really soft area. It's a swampy area. We don't usually drive vehicles in here. At the time, I believe that was at the time that, the school district was starting to ask for a parking lot in the area. You know, staff didn't really recommend it. This, where this is occurring is the natural drainage. Before all this was built, this is where most of the groundwater went to go down to, I can't remember the.
I don't know that we have that information. You use the word ground before the word water. I think we know where the surface water historically had gone, but I think there really is a question today as we speak as to what the groundwater situation is. And I personally don't feel like we have enough data and information on which to make a decision if we're talking about groundwater. And so throwing 168 here, and who knows if we'll have to do some more and expand this thing so we do half the parking lot and the concrete spaces, the handicap spots, whether the interceptor in the form of this French drain that then go into the RCP pipe. You know, I think we're just doing some things that are based on hope and maybe probability, but I don't even know if we can determine that. Commissioner Friel?
Well, the only thing I was going to add to it is, if I heard you correctly, the French drain has not been bid out yet?
Correct.
Okay, so my concern, and it couples with what the chairman was saying, is I don't want to move forward on a change order that is not complete. So we don't have a French drain price in this change order, so would that be an additional change order later on that would have to be done when we get that pricing?
No, currently Caspar is working on that right now. And Mr. Hauser might be able to clarify this, but I believe with the change in the materials from the drain rock, I believe the design team thought it might be close to a wash. It might be a little more than 168,000 with this change by removing that drain rock and putting the French drain in. But I have not seen any pricing, so I don't know yet. But they are working on that at this time.
Like, the point that I'm trying to make is we're on change order number 10 on this already. And in this situation, it sounds like you need to have the pricing in place for this French drain because it's all gonna be part of this one change order. If it's not, then that's an additional amount we're gonna end up paying later on another change order. I go back to what the chairman was saying, and I agree wholeheartedly. We probably ought to do some more testing on this area to make sure that everything that we do on the change order to fix this is all inclusive and will be a fix, not, as you were saying, throw money at it and hope that takes care of the problem. So I'm in favor of doing further testing to make sure that it gets done right the first time.
Yeah,
Commissioner Laird.
I would agree with that. What I'm wondering is, we have contracts with all these people. We don't have a county attorney here today. But I'd like to know if anything like this is addressed in the contracts, because generally I've seen provisions in there where they address things that may pop up. And then calling it a change order bothers me too. I've always been bothered by change orders since I was on the city council, because sometimes they're not change orders, they're add-on orders. But this sounds like a fix-it order. Something needs to be fixed because some problem wasn't addressed to begin with. So calling it a change order softens it, but I just don't think it's a change. And I'm just wondering what the liability is for the people we hire to, you go into the doctor and, well, we didn't think of checking his heart, although he wasn't, breathing very well, and he died. We should have checked his heart too. So I'm just curious. I mean, I'm not pointing any fingers at anybody, but I'd just like to know, is this something that just happens frequently? Or is it just something that happens where people aren't thorough? I'm curious about that.
I don't know the answer to that. We can definitely ask Mr. Hauser with his professional opinion. He's done this work for a long time. He may have a better understanding of what's going on here than I do.
Is Mr. Hauser still on?
I bel-
Still there?
Can you answer that last thought of mine?
Yeah, it's, you broke up a little bit in there, so if I didn't hear it completely, I apologize. But what you're asking is if some additional testing is warranted at this time to, determine the full extent of the problem. And whether or not, soft spots in parking areas and roadways are free. Is that correct?
Kind of. What I'm wondering is I made the statement when we first started. We're not engineers here on this commission, so we're the buck stops here guys. But these are the kind of things I think somebody else ought to be worried about and make sure they're done correctly. I've hired a lot of experts, and I've been in a lot of cases where things have happened where everybody's blaming everybody else. I'm just kind of wondering whose job is it to figure this out so that it would have been taken care of by now and we'd have known how to fix it and all of that when the thing first began. I'm just curious about that.
So, the full history of everything in front of me right now, I apologize for that. But I can tell you the project has changed significantly from the first time we did some geotechnical engineering up there to what the project is today, including, as I think Michael had indicated, the parking lot on the west side and going to the north was probably an add-on, if I recall. So that's not something we would have targeted early on in the geotechnical engineering. As far as, whether or not soft spots show up in parking areas and roadways, I won't say that it's frequent all the time, but it does happen. you know, we go up and we lay out the borings and testing as best we can, given what the plan is at the time. And we interpretate between the information and make the best judgment that we can at the time. One of those data points that we used was the fact that the existing gravel parking lot had been there for a number of years, and there were no maintenance issues with it to speak of. There was no reason to think that there would be significant maintenance issues that would come up with this additional parking area on the west.
So, Mr. Hauser, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Mr. Hauser.
No, that's fine.
I want to know what your professional recommendation is so that the next time we're back here, we have all of the information that will allow us to make a decision on the fix. In my mind, the proof rolling will show an area that's maybe a problem. So it seems like that's a cheap, relatively cheap way of determining that. But what I'm not hearing is how we are going to have any level of confidence that what we do or don't do is going to fix the groundwater migration that Michael mentioned, if there is even any groundwater migration. And so to me, it seems maybe that is a, I don't know if it's a coring, if it's a, I mean, I don't know about monitor wells, but what is your professional opinion so that we can get to the bottom of this?
Groundwater flow is always a difficult situation. It takes a lot of information in the form of many monitoring wells being monitored for months and years to determine, you know, what the groundwater does during low water years, what it does during high water years, and average years. So, given the construction schedule, I guess I wouldn't recommend doing a significant number of monitor wells, you know, at the site. And knowing that the groundwater could change a little bit, but we have some measures in place with the French drain to collect some of that, move it away from the building into the RCP. Should it get trapped in our subgrade improvement areas.
And as I recall, the French drain is designed to be on the building side of so the east side of this problem area, and that it intercepts with the RCP pipe?
Correct, and there's been some discussion with the architects in regards to putting a second one on the west side to intercept anything that might be entering it from that side. And that's a relatively cheap addition.
Okay, well, first you're going to go do some proof rolling, is that correct?
I recommend that once the site is graded to subgrade elevations, that we do additional proof rolling, yes.
Michael, when are things going to be graded to that level?
I'll have to check with Caspar. They were basically in a holding pattern on doing any additional dirt work till we determined this change order request. The other thing that's in a holding pattern is the parking lot lights and running power to those, the conduit and whatnot. So I will check with them and see when they could have that done so we could get Mr. Hauser up there. I did have one question from Mr. Hauser on this. If we do nothing and just finish it as is, what do you forecast that we're gonna have maintenance wise or problematic issues that are gonna come up during the winter when we have parking, during the summer? I just would like to get your opinion on that so everybody can hear it.
Sure. So a lot of it will depend on the amount of traffic and the heavier traffic that will go over it in the springtime, summertime, when it's wet. seeing a more recent proof roll. I would say that we could be looking at ruts in the neighborhood of, 6 to 8 inches potentially, from what I saw in the previous proof roll, if the ground, continues to be saturated.
Do you forecast that this proof roll that we're gonna do here, will be less, due to we're being more in the dry season of the year? Or do you think it'll matter?
I'm sorry.
When we do this next proof roll, do you expect, that it may impact the top layer less because we're in early September and more in a dry season than we are in May and June?
Typically, yes. I certainly would have expected it would dry out more in the summer, and then now it's the fall as well. Michael, based on your observation of some equipment driving over it last week, I guess I would have to see what it's doing currently.
Okay,
But typically, you would expect to see your worst deformations in spring and early summer.
There was significant rutting on the 29th when I walked that parking lot. By significant, I would say 6 to 10 inches in the problem area. So I think we should move forward with this proof roll, and if it requires some grading so that it should be at a certain subgrade level, then please have Caspar do that. With regard to the parking lot lights, I don't understand exactly. Well, number one, I think that one thought was to bury them deeper, and to put the conduit in at 4 to 5 feet down rather than 30 to 36 inches below the surface. But if it's only parking lot lights, to me, that's not a huge deal. And how many parking lot lights are there that go through the kind of the heart of this parking lot versus being on the periphery, either close to the building by the handicap parking or over kind of it'd be on the west or the far south sides where the trees, closer where the trees are.
so I believe there's probably 3 in this new parking lot section. And probably 1, possibly 2 in the soft spot area. So it's not a lot. It's just, that, they're trying to maintain their schedule is what Casper's doing. So they brought that issue up about running the conduit and the concern, but they could bury it deeper. If excavation's determined, then they would probably lay it in while it's excavated and bury on top of it. So I think we can work around that.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like a big deal, 2 parking lot lights. All right, commissioners, anything else for
Mr.
Michael?
Chairman,
Michael?
one quick question. Is this gonna be a big setback time-wise on this whole project? And if so, how long?
I know Caspar in their email stated that, if we didn't have an answer by September 1st, it was gonna have significant delays to the project. I don't necessarily agree with that opinion. So I think we can make it work, but it sounds like we need to have more evidence for the commission as well as the revised pricing request.
Well, here's the evidence I would like to have today, is for you to call Wesley Hayden and find out what the significant setback would be. Because if this is significant, can mean to me 6, 8 months. And then in that case, then I'd have to rethink whether I would vote in favor of doing it today, paying the money and getting the thing done. I'm assuming the rest of the commissioners would like to know that. If it's a 2-week delay, it's one thing. If it's months and months delay, then everything gets more expensive. These things don't get cheaper as we go along. They get more expensive the longer we delay them.
Commissioner Laird, I did talk with Mr. Brannon, Neil Brannon, I believe he's the project manager for Caspar. It didn't sound like the whole project is going to be put on hold or anything like that. It sounded like any delays would be more tied to these parking lot lights, which to me, I don't think we're talking 6 months. And I'm not thinking that's a real substantial component of the overall project. So that's what I understand to be the case.
Well, that's more explanatory, but he uses the term significant delays, so I'd like to figure that one out, or why he uses that term.
Well, I think that's fair to go ask Caspar for more information on significant delays, but I think we're giving you some guidance here today to proceed forward with the pricing on the French drain or drains, if we're going to do two, and approve rolling.
Okay.
Anything else? All right. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hauser. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Again, I apologize for being here today. I hope the audience was clear.
Yeah, it was good. Thank you.
you.
All right, our next appointment is with Eileen Hill, IT Director for an IT GIS update. Hi,
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
welcome.
Thank you. Last week I met with Warm on their cyber task force. They are planning on and hoping to host a risk management conference in April here in Casper. And the question was posed to the group as to whether or not our electeds and department heads would be interested in possibly having a continuity of operations tabletop exercise during that conference. So just let you ponder that and get back to me if you think that's of interest. And I will also pose that question out to the rest of the department heads. It's in April, so I have plenty of time to consider it. We have a new hire in IT who started today. His name is James Cochran. We're excited to have him on board, and so that fully staffs the IT office. In September, in a few weeks, we will be having our second annual Wyoming County IT Directors Conference here in Casper. We're pretty excited this year. We're going to do a day and a half rather than just a day. We have a jam-packed agenda. GIS topics, evidence storage, Supreme Court technology will be there, Secretary of State elections, our federal partners with CISA and DCI and the Department of Homeland Security to talk about all things cyber. Also, YDOT will be there for projects that are ongoing in the Department of Transportation, including cleaning up their data and moving off of their mainframe and next generation 911. And then the Department of Revenue will be there to talk about the upgrade to the assessor software. And so last year, you were very generous and supported a lunch buffet, and I'm requesting again your monetary support if you would consider it. This year, Laramie County, Albany, Campbell, Sweetwater, and Carbon are also contributing to the conference. It's free to county IT directors. There's no vendors. All topics are related directly to the offices that we support. I suspect that it would be probably around $550 if all those counties contribute.
Well, I'd like to see us contribute.
Thank you.
I think that'd be good. I see some commissioners nodding, so we'd be happy to support at that level. I'm not sure exactly where we'd get the money from, but it sounds like that's a manageable amount.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I'll work with Tracy on the
Great.
funding as it
Mr. Chairman,
comes to us.
I just want to make sure that, because this morning I thought we talked over, it was closer to 800.
That's what we spent last year.
Okay, so
This
you
year we-
won't need that much this year? Okay,
I won't need that much this year.
okay.
In our GIS department, we are working on the flight contract. So the aerial imagery that will occur in the spring, that contract is being negotiated with our GIS administrator, Denise Wiskip, and hopefully you will have that in front of you either this month or early next month so we can get that project rolling. That'll begin in the spring, and then it will wrap up around next August. So it kind of crosses over fiscal years. Tracy's been working with me on making sure we get that funding all figured out, and I appreciate your support with that project. Thank you. GeoSmart will be upgraded to a new experience. The software is getting an overhaul, and so the team is working on trying to figure out a more intuitive and friendlier interface with our GeoSmart application. So that's underway in the GIS department. They are also actively involved with Next Generation 911. High-level view of Next Generation 911 is just a modernized 911 system, so that the dispatch centers, if you will have a standard addressing scheme, which it will be used, GIS will be used for that, and locations. So they're working very hard on standardizing that throughout the state. And then in those areas where there's some overlap of counties or services, that it will be standardized. So that's a really great project. My understanding is that there'll be some sort of presentation at Waco if you want to learn more about that, or if you have more interest. I'm really not the subject matter expert on this. We can bring Denise in and discuss it further if you'd like. The assessor's office and the treasurer's office, the tax roll and the tax sale are underway, and that's looking good. So those should be wrapping up soon. We supported the primary election and getting ready to wind up for the general, and I think everything there went really well at the e-poll book locations. I think you would agree? Great. The coroner has wrapped up his scanning project, and we're going to demonstrate that same technology to the legal department and start working in the legal office on archiving and scanning some of their documents and getting better organized, and maybe reevaluating software and functionality of the software in their office to improve some efficiencies there. So I'm working with Heather on that. I'm working with the sheriff's IT department. We have two kind of big projects underway there. We're going to upgrade their network infrastructure at the detention center. So their network switches are getting a little bit older and they need more capacity and power. So we're working on that, along with a Microsoft project in the emergency management office. We really need, they volunteered, and they're a great use case for us to fully understand all the features that we can gain from the Microsoft 365 suite, because they do a lot of collaboration within and outside of the county. We'll also be upgrading our phone system and expanding out to Road and Bridge this fall and winter, and upgrading our financial software to be compliant for the end of the year. Let's see. And then other than just day-to-day, we've had about 2,500 help desk tickets since January, and the website continues to be popular for property search tools, vehicle licensing, and any and all things inmates. So I don't have anything else to share, and happy to answer any questions you might have. What's going on in IT?
Questions for Eileen and IT? The GeoSmart
Yes.
revisions, when is that going to go live?
I don't know. We met last week just to begin the process, and I mentioned to the team to reach out to you and Commissioner Milne, because you had some feedback some time ago, and to see if you to kind of assist with some of that.
I have additional feedback.
Good, that'd be great. Okay,
At the appropriate time. So Denise or you, somebody can get in touch.
you bet.
What, you mentioned upgrading financial software, I
Yeah.
think, to help us year end, and I don't know if that
Yeah.
includes budgeting, but can you give me a little more information?
Sure. Each year, in order to prepare for the year-end financial reporting that needs to be done within the Sage 100 product for tax tables and what else? Tracy, help me out here a little bit. Or W-2s or W-4s. We have to be at a certain version of the software in order to handle all of those year-end processing tasks. So we do it periodically every other year. It's not an uplift, if you will. It's just making sure that everything is current.
Very good. Anything else? Okay, well, thanks
Okay.
for coming in and giving us the update.
Thank you.
We're a little ahead of schedule, but our next appointment is with Garrett Rotenheffer, Maintenance Department Supervisor, for an update. I see you're here, so let's keep going.
Sir. Good afternoon. I've prepared just a little bit of an update on the last big projects that we've either completed or are currently still working on for the last six months. I can start with this building here at the courthouse. We have finished the commissioner's parking lot project. Everything went really smooth. There's one small thing left to do, and that's just a handrail on the fire egress wall, but Pepper Tank's building that, and my staff and I will install that. The B Street parking lot is moving along. I've got pricing and materials for project completion once everything is up to grade. We will be installing a 6-foot wide stairwell on the west side of the parking lot so employees can enter it from David Street. And we will also be putting in a 4-foot decorative fence around the existing retaining wall to meet code. Our York chiller showed up last week, Thursday. We unloaded it at the detention center, and we were just awaiting contractors and weather and for installation. I would assume we would try to get that later this fall or early spring to have that chiller installed here. Our 3rd floor carpet that was approved in the budget is scheduled to start next Wednesday. And we'll get that carpet installed on 3rd floor in the public defender's office. Any questions on this building?
Not on this building. I have a couple other questions.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Shoot. Hall of Justice, I've got some contractors meted where I'm gonna knock the egress door way out for emergency management, that the sheriff asked for, and also replacing a lot of ceiling tiles, kind of brightening up the hallways and their, conference rooms that they use quite a bit over there.
On the Hall of Justice, I was wondering if the Joint Powers Board has looked at the city of Casper's move-out schedule, if thought has been given to the impact on you and the county fiscal side of it. I know people are thinking about it just kind of generally, but should we be more intentional about it and thinking about, specific dollar amount impacts to the budget and how things are going to operate differently once the city's out?
We are, I think the talks that we've had, it's still looking to be 2 to 4 years, if I remember right, that's their plan on moving out. With that said, there are some improvements that the Joint Powers Board and myself have planned to accomplish in that next 2 to 4 years.
Okay, well, as we get closer, I think the commission and you will need to make sure there aren't any, that we are thinking ahead, because it seems to me that's a big building with, a lot of things that could get expensive quick, so.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Laird?
I'm glad you touched on that because if 2 to 4 years with our little committee, the city will be happy to pay their share of stuff we do now.
Yes, sir.
They're not gonna pay after they're moved out, you know that.
Yep, I do.
And so I kept thinking 2 years. not sure about the 4 years, but I'm sure it changes from time to time depending on their contractual obligations over there. But I think that, and hopefully you could give us some idea of what that building's gonna need when they move out or as they're moving out or whatever, that are these big ticket items that I think Mr. Nicolason has in mind.
And I can definitely have that ready. Our next meeting is on the 1st, I believe, of October, and, I can have
That would
a
be
good
good.
line item
Have it-
ready
have
for,
it there, yeah.
to present to
Get it to
you
the
all.
city in advance if you can of the meeting too.
Yes, sir. I agree we should.
I did have a question about this building. What would it cost us to just change the lights in this room so that they're more modern and lighter and I can see better in here?
With these troffer lights swapping to LED, I would think no more than, for this room alone, I would say 5 to 10,000.
That much, huh?
Yeah. Just because they are an old fixture. You'd have to replace every bulb up there and every ballast, and it doesn't look like it, but for every 4 feet, there's 4 bulbs up there.
It'd change the whole lighting outlook in here though, wouldn't it?
It would brighten it up.
Maybe I can talk them into it. You never know. I'll catch them all in a weak moment.
No, we can try.
Just so we can see what it looks like, because we've talked about it for the whole building at some point.
We did, yes, sir. Yeah, the detention center's been fairly busy here in the last 6 months. We've got a lot done up there. The Tower One boiler room project was completed in July. We got those storage tanks and domestic hot water boilers raised up, draining, repiped, revamped that whole room to where it will not flood now. It's gonna take a catastrophe to flood those rooms again. We're also replacing a couple domestic hot water boilers at JDC. They provide hot water to JDC and also to the kitchen. We finished one about 10 days ago. That's been replaced. Boiler one has the factory startup is tomorrow. When that's done, plumbing contractor will come right in and replace boiler two, and we'll have that project wrapped up.
That's good.
Yep. The new roof is great. We haven't had any leaks all summer. No problems, no issues. It passed all inspections, and it's been really nice to have. The 8 rooftops that we also replaced this spring have been a little bit temperamental at times, but trying to tie in a new unit with old software took a little bit of time to work the kinks out, but I believe we've gained ground on that, and everything's been running pretty steadily here for the last 6 weeks to a month. And the next big thing up there is just to replace all the admin carpet in the lieutenant's offices, and as soon as the carpet here at the courthouse is finished, that's where they're headed next. And that's kind of what we've got going. A lot of moving parts at all these buildings.
Can you give me an exact cost to replace these bulbs so I can show it to the commissioners?
I can
what
get
it-
you one.
Exactly what it would cost.
I can get you one, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay,
This is
Um,
discriminatory against the older commissioners
it-
that can't see as well as the younger commissioners.
I feel your pain actually with my, my own eyesight, Commissioner Laird. I would ask you to be thinking about a facility study, a formal facility study. And I would like it to be part of your budget next year. And so I think you're gonna have to do some homework before you've got a number, I think you're going to need to continue working on kind of, I think it's an ongoing project where you're trying to do some evaluation to these buildings, you know, I mean, you know, I think pretty well what we're not getting done in terms of big ticket items. And, you know, we said no to you on the LEDs for this building. You know, so Garrett, I just would ask, you know, whether it's the green light, yellow light, you know, red light, kind of analysis on a building by building basis. I mean, I know with everything else you've got going on, it's hard to devote time to that, but hopefully you can, so that we can, get this study, next year.
Yes, sir. And I can work on that. We're finally fully staffed in the maintenance department. Actually will be, coming next Monday, but, so that should open up more time to evaluate and get a better list and a better look of what you guys would like to see.
Good.
Mr. Chairman, there's been some work done on this already. The people that do the study, I talked to the people that did the study, the city hired. So you have a lot of information you can get from the city. You can see the number of buildings they have, the different number of buildings we have, because they charge by the building. And so, and there is a contact person. So that's great that you could devote a little time to that. I think you'll find it'll be run smoothly
Yes, sir.
for you.
Thank you.
The last thing on my list for you involves the library. It's easy for us to, you know, keep focusing on the things that are, you know, the squeaky wheels and taking care of those things. But can you give me an update on any conversations you've had with the library and work you've done over there?
The work we've done has been minimal still. Some rooftop units changing out. Just minimal things, motors, fuses, little things like that. I haven't had a chance to do a formal walkthrough. I've been in contact with their maintenance man, Fred, and that we were gonna start working on some of these things like the boiler replacement in the basement was approved, and some of the smaller things like the water fountains. Kind of that list that they requested of. I still need to devote more time to getting through that building and seeing exactly what I think. With not being in there every day, it's kind of hard to just walk in and know every mechanical equipment and what it acts like during the day, or when temperatures are 43 in the morning and then they jump to 80 by the afternoon. But I will get more of an analysis on that.
Good. I think that the commission committed to working with the library and trying to prioritize, you know, the items from the 2013 study, you know, pat ourselves on the back and cross off the few that have been done or redone, but I'd like the library to come in and visit with us about that this fall.
Okay.
And I had mentioned that back in June. And so I think before we do that, I think that you are going to need to get together with Fred. And if I were you, I'd have that 2013, you know, thing highlighted in front of me as I'm walking through it, so that we know, you know, what's changed since then, what maybe has been fixed, what maybe is worse, what wasn't even on the list. But I think this commission is committed to doing that. And so if you can help us out, that'll be, I think, the next step.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And please reach out to me or Commissioner Laird if you need us to either, you know, call the folks over at the library or to walk through it with you. A lot of that stuff's above our pay grade perhaps, or at least mine. I don't know about Commissioner Laird, but let us know if you need our assistance in any way.
I will. I appreciate that.
Okay. Commissioners, anything else? Okay. Hey, thanks a
Alrighty.
bunch.
Yes, sir. You guys have a good afternoon.
You too. We're still well ahead. I see some elected officials here, not quite all of them, so I think we're going to take a 10-minute break.
Did you want to get Heather down here, maybe? She's
Yeah,
on
let
the-
me reach out to her. Let's go ahead and take a break for a few minutes. Those are my. Those are my current sewer projects. It just keeps getting bigger.
new clock.
Feel better? It's been like a couple weeks since the election, right? So we gotta calm it down and get ready for next year.
You need a left one.
I do. How about for my health? Even if it's come along once a week and you can exercise. The whole office, the whole time, so it's what it is, so we got on.
They did it for me. Might need weather. And that was good, okay? You did it? No, no.
Okay.
Great.
That's something new that you can have results. Sure. Used to sit there watching TV. Okay, come on, go. step with 2 or 3 people, but it's in that.
Because they're just that great.
All right, we're going to get going for our next appointment with our distinguished elected officials. We have today here our clerk. Yes, I see our sheriff here as well, and our coroner. I'm not sure if we'll be joined by our treasurer and our assessor, but let's go ahead and start with the clerk. I hear she's going to go first.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you. Just briefly, the only thing I really have an update on is the election. Everything went well. We didn't have any major issues at all. Everyone worked very hard and tirelessly to make it secure and efficient. And I'm greatly impressed and thankful for the camaraderie that I have with the elected officials and the departments heads of Natrona County. The maintenance department, the sheriff's department, the road and bridge department, the IT department, the fairgrounds, they all are my backbone in order to get these elections done, and I couldn't do it without them. I have a great group of people that I work with. They drop everything at a minute's notice to accommodate me when something comes up, and I can't thank them enough for all the hard work that they do to make these elections go off without a hitch. And with that being said, I am just gearing up for the next one, which is coming up hot and heavy. We're coding the ballot right now. There's a very small time frame or window that we have in order to get that done. So that's in the process, and we start absentee voting October 8th. So getting ready for that.
I didn't hear that date. When?
October 8th
Thank
is when absentee starts. Other than that, that's about all I have unless you have any questions.
Questions for our clerk? Tracy, about how many county employees would you estimate assist you in the primary election?
Not including my staff, I'm going to say 30 or more, at least.
How many volunteers, and did you have enough volunteers this year?
So we have over 250 election judges. We were thankful that when some do drop out, or have to cancel at the last minute, we had some reserves or some extras that we got to tap into that pool. So we did fine.
And then do you think you're going to have enough election judges for the general?
Well, I'm hoping so, yes. Again, things happen last minute that no one can really plan for, so we always try to have several in the wings. But we've had a lot of interest in people wanting to be election judges, so that has really come in handy.
Good. And do you have trainings for those folks?
Yes, I conducted 8 trainings. The majority of those are 3 hours long. We also have an election judge manual that my staff and I revamped. We probably spent about 60 hours on that this year, so that was quite the undertaking, but we got that done as well.
Do you have any problems with election judges typically?
As far as
Well, doing things that aren't in accordance with your manual?
sometimes they get nervous and they don't refer to the manual, but typically if there's any questions, they know that they can call us at any moment, and that's what they do before they start going rogue. They call, and we have coordinators, we have managers, so we not only we have certain layers or different hierarchy at the polls. So
How many elections have you been involved in over the
100.
years?
100 at least. So a lot.
A lot. Well, Tracy, I think that from what I can tell, we're one of the best examples in this state of how we run an election. And I know that that's due in large part to you individually, but then I know you have a team and I know you have a lot of people help, but thank you very much. And from, for every voter that participates and those that should, that don't, thank you. Because I think that, like I said, I think we in Wyoming, are in a pretty good spot. But I think we here in Natrona County are particularly, doing particularly well. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
And I echo that. You're a fantastic county clerk, and you have a fantastic group of ladies that work for you.
Yes, thank
And
you.
gentlemen, I appreciate it.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Good. Any other, oh, was that one decided by 7 votes? Is that what? there
That's
was,
correct,
Like
yes.
for a House district
We-
race?
Yes, House District 62, we did have a mandatory recount, and the recount figures came out exactly as the original count came out, so.
Well, I think that, first of all, that was, just about as close as it could get out of 1,000 or, I don't know, more votes. But also the fact that it stayed the same after the recount, I think should give people additional confidence in our system and in how you run things. So,
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, we had several recounts. We had a couple precinct committee recounts, so we did it all on the same day, obviously, and everything came out the exact same as the original results.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
Yep, thank you.
Yep.
I'm on board for 2.
Great. Welcome.
I don't know if you want me to just give you Jill's stuff or read it aloud or, but this is, Jill, she's in trial.
Do you want to do the clerk of district court first and? or do you
Yeah,
wanna do-
I'll read it off for you. How's that? Okay, so from Jill, we are working hard, get ready for mandatory e-filing, which goes into effect on October 1st. Many private members of the bar have already started. We're seeing an increase in legal pleadings coming into the office. I'm current chair for the subject matter experts committee on e-filing and the record. Supreme Court staff are also members of this committee. We have many processes to work through, both legal and paper. The Court Navigator program is beginning to pick up and have increased their availability for in-person meetings. This is a big benefit to our community, as they're a huge need to help pro se litigants. I took the training last week and was certified in peer support. You may recall that I spoke about this before to give our court staff and jurors more support. I and my chief also, with Jill, went through that program, and we'll be attaching ourselves, whether it's to the sheriff's office or some jurisdiction that has this in place, so that we have it as well. We had a free training from the National Association for Court Managers last week. 76 district deputy clerks from around the state were trained and certified on court functions. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share this with you all. And if you have any questions about that, don't ask me.
All right, we will go to our clerk of district court for questions and follow-up. Thank you for that. And then for your report?
All right, as for me, and it's probably along my basic business hasn't changed since we've been meeting this year at all. This has been I'll just call it an abnormal year. Kind of roller coaster ride when it comes to unnatural death. Right now through August, the cases that I've taken, we're sitting exactly on the same number as last year on natural deaths that we've investigated. But unnatural death in every form is going through the roof. And I don't know exactly why that is, but homicides, suicides, overdoses.
When you say going through the roof, sorry to interrupt.
Well, they're
20% more
they're
than
way
last year?
above what would be average for us. So, I mean, they're peaking and kind of staying that way when we talk about, like I said, overdoses, alcohol-related deaths, accidents especially. Are going way up. Suicides are going up and staying up. all that kind of stuff that fits in that unnatural realm is just unusually high this year.
Do you have numbers?
Sure. So, right now through the end of August, suicides were sitting at 20. We took 5 in August alone.
Can you say also what they were last year?
Last year, actually, at this point, they're at 22. So we're actually 2 behind last year, but last year after August, everything kind of dropped off the cliff and for the rest of the year. And this year, it doesn't look like that's going to happen. So, I mean, we're on pace statistically, you know, to maybe having another 2021 record-setting year if
I don't like the sound of those records, though.
yeah, me either, to tell you the truth. One of the big shockers for me this year is the amount of deaths related to chronic alcoholism, and especially that in the younger population. Whereas usually that's something that takes time and you see it more in an older population. I mean, we're talking about, you know, kids in their 20s and 30s dying of chronic alcoholism. And
Are you going to give us those numbers too?
I don't have those sitting in front of me, but I can get you those to tell you how many.
Do you have the natural deaths?
Natural deaths through August, we sat on 94, and these are just cases that I take, not ones that I refuse. And again, and we sat at 94th in August last year of natural cases that I took on. But like I said, accidents, we're at 36 already for the year, which is already surpassed what we would have had for total year last year. I mean,
Are those mostly car wrecks?
car wrecks, industrial accidents, falls in the older population where they break their hips and are too old to operate on. We've had 2 major industrial accidents this year. And then, motor vehicle accidents are up for our county in comparison to last year. But then you might have a lot of them that'll be ruled accident that are overdoses, which again are getting way up there. Already sitting on almost more than we took in all of last year at this point. So, in any case, you know, the trend is that unnatural death is going up where natural death is kind of staying the same. And, you know, that's never a good sign. I can't pinpoint exactly why that is, but it's just been an awful year for that. So, I think Eileen probably told you about the scanning project that you guys approved last year. We finally finished that. Thank God. That was a lot bigger project than we anticipated, and I appreciate your support on helping me get that done. But the office is now literally basically 100% digital, and everything that we have in the past is now digital as well. And so the last piece of that will be for me to I'll try and get the blessing of Wyoming Archives. I don't need it, but I'm going to get it anyway of destroying all those documents now that we pulled out of that green sea land van and everything we had from the courthouse from prior years. So we are on the last steps of getting through the FBI and DCI and having our own digital fingerprint capabilities out there. Which is a big win for coroners and medical examiners as a whole when they passed that law that said we can get directly into the FBI system and do all that kind of stuff. Well, we jumped on board with that, and we're just in the last phases of that. The X-ray that you guys approved for us has been ordered, and so we'll have an X-ray machine out there here pretty quick, which would be pretty cool. And again, I thank you for that. And that came out of the 1 cent funds. And other than that, that's just about it, other than I will throw out, you know, you probably heard or seen, and I've sent all kinds of emails out and everything about our involvement with the youth and with suicide trends and other things that contribute to all that, especially when it comes to our youth. The governor has made us part of his big deal called the Prosper Program, which has been in several parts of the state, but this year he decided to throw us on board because of the problems that we were having. One thing that has come out of that through the Department of Health, through surveys they did of the community, is having more elected officials, elected decision-making officials out in front of this. So I'd invite you to join up with me on that project. The Prosper Community Event is happening on September 16th at 6:30, and that'll be up at the college. They'll have a panel that we would like to see. I'll be there, but other elected officials on as well for the community. If you feel the inclination to maybe jump in with me on this and have that elected presence, please do. Please do.
Thank you.
And that's pretty much it till next time.
Sunshine.
Yeah. Most people don't like when I come sit with them, but
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, Commissioner Friel.
I just wanted to say, I believe we're going to do a follow-up on the columbarium, but it should be signed off on both sides now with the city and the county, so we should be good to go. It's just a matter of getting a date of when they're going to get
build
that
it
thing
and put it
shipped.
in.
Yep.
Yep, and I've met with the funeral homes, with legal, and kind of gotten everybody. My last step is to go over to the cemetery itself and talk to like their sexton and figure out the exact deals of putting people in and out and how that all is going to work. Because once, it's my understanding from everything that I've looked at so far, once they put in, it's a done deal, because taking them out is no different than an exhumation, and you got to have God and everybody on board and court orders and everything signing off on that. So a little update on where we're at as far as the cremains that I do have. I think we're to the point where I have given to family just about everybody that is not going into that columbarium. That we might be sitting on one or two that still are going to be shipped once we get their paperwork back on it. But literally, once we get that thing up and running, what goes in is going to be it. So
How many people do you have to inter?
you know, I don't have that right in front of me, but I'm thinking it's right on about 23 right now. So everything that we've had happen since basically we started this program, or not program, it's always been a program, but started the whole deal with the columbarium, we've managed to get back to families and people concerned to take care of them. So we're down to, I think, pretty much that basic first number that we started with at around 23 is what'll go in there for sure. So
I think I can join you on the 16th in the evening. I don't, we'll see.
right.
Who
It's
else?
at 6 to 7:30, and like I said, it's a big community event. Well, I don't know how big it'll be, because we've kind of gone forlong into this as a last-minute deal when Prosper came on board. This Dr. Corso off the East Coast is the one that contracts with the entire state for this. He's one of only, I think, 8 actual PhD suicidologists in the world. And he's been doing this all over the state and through communities and stuff on contract with the governor. And it seems to be a pretty big deal. I've gone through the training with him. And it's pretty eye-opening and really generates that community involvement I think that we need if we're going to tackle this at all. So
Very good. Any other questions or topics for the coroner? Okay, thank you, sir. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Commissioners.
Sheriff, welcome.
Thank you. We have been busy, but everything's going fairly well. Our staffing remains consistent. I believe on paper today that we're one deputy down and one kitchen supervisor down. So we have people in the backgrounds that in the hiring process for those two positions. And we're also looking forward to hiring for a couple retirements that are coming up. But all in all, staffing's going good. Morale's still steady. And we're keeping our head above water. I think you've heard from some of the other department heads that we are involved in several projects of maintenance, repairs, and upgrades at the detention center. Trying to look forward, as you suggested, to a time when maybe the city of Casper is going to vacate the Hall of Justice and what that means for the sheriff's office. So we'll be talking in the future to maintenance and kind of forecasting what that looks like. Try to give you a better picture as we move forward. Are conducting an internal analysis, needs assessment of the possibility of adding a position for a forensic digital analyst. What we've seen in the previous years is all of our crimes have a component, a need to analyze digital equipment, and that is a time-consuming process. So we're picking through the number of cases that we have where that capability is required, and the man hours required to facilitate that, and trying to determine if that's a worthwhile position to add.
Mr. Sheriff, if I may, so in the past, when you have that need in a particular case, is that just something that you outsource, have a third-party contractor provide assistance? Or how do you manage it at present?
Mr. Chairman, what we've done is added that duty. It's an additional duty to our criminal investigators, our sworn investigators. And what I'm trying to get a good grasp on is it more fiscally responsible to add that duty to a criminal investigator who may move around in the office after we've invested that type of training and experience in? Or is it a better investment of the public's money to put that money into like a civilian position that stays there, so that knowledge and that training stays with that person and they don't move around in the office to other assignments?
Okay. Okay.
And let's see, we've made, I made the recommendation, looking at the potential settler wind project. I've made the recommendation to the county attorney that we consider the possibility of adding a deputy sheriff position if that project moves forward. What we've seen in these last few industrial projects that have come in to the county is an increase in calls for service. The wind project north of town, we've had several calls for service, including an industrial fatality accident, unfortunately. But calls for service like that are very time intensive, manpower intensive, and my concern is with several of these large industrial projects coming in that we may not be able to mitigate that increase in requirement for manpower.
Well, I'm glad you're talking to the county attorney about that already. I know that the industrial siding division and the industrial siding council are getting more and more restrictive on what they sometimes see by certain jurisdictions, not ours, certain other jurisdictions as kind of a cash grab. And so to the extent that that can be documented and, you know, I think it's great. But I know that we have to put a little more time and energy and have things dialed in a little bit better. And they still say no sometimes when I think we have a valid basis for it. So thanks, and let us know if there's anything we can do, because I think you're right that the calls, you know, and you're traveling quite a ways to get to the site. And so it's not just, you know, driving, you know, to the outskirts of town. It's a way. So anyway, good luck with that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And we have, historically, I have been very conservative in my asks.
Yeah, you have.
From that committee. So certainly it's not something that I take lightly. And we do try to, you know, maximize our resources internally to best fit all those needs. But, you know, at some point, when industrial projects come in, that project itself shouldn't burden the rest of the community and our taxpayers. So trying to balance that out a little bit with being conservative and certainly being most efficient with our existing resources, but being mindful that it shouldn't take away from the capabilities that we give to our citizens. But other than that, I don't have any the big updates, but certainly stand for any questions that you have.
Questions for the sheriff?
You're doing a good job, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any more questions over on this side? Trying to think, I can't think of any right now. How was, I just asked Michael, with Parks this question, how was Labor Day weekend out at the lake? I didn't read any big stories in the newspaper, which is always a good thing. Any law enforcement major issues out there?
Mr. Chairman, I wouldn't say that we had anything that really stood out. We were busy, of course. The weather was nice. It was hot. There were quite a few people out at the lake, both Alcova and Pathfinder. Quite a few people on the river as well. But nothing really major that's, you know, stood out.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Right, thank you.
Hi,
Mr.
Madam
Chairman,
Assessor.
Commissioners. We've been pretty busy this year. Got some good news on that part, that the bond for the Casper College did go down significantly, 1.7 million. So that saved taxpayers some money there, which also, when you guys approved the mill levies, those mills went down as well. So taxes this year should be just slightly less than what they have been. Valuation was still up locally, and we were down about 100 million, I believe, in minerals, if I'm remembering right on that. So that, good and bad there. My plea today, and I've asked my field staff to come with me, and my field assessor, field supervisor, Christy Clark, to come, and it's a plea, and I think we need to look at how we can make our job in the assessor's office more safer. In the last month, and I have been in contact with the Casper Police Department for probably over 3 weeks now, that we call every single morning and let them know on the non-emergency number that how many teams I have out in the community, and where they're going to be located. We have come across, and literally it has been terrible in the last 3 weeks, so I'm not sure what's happening in our community or the mentality of our citizens, if it's the election, everything, the inflation rates, but we have come across some issues that are becoming more concerning to me, and to see the faces of my staff of which one is not going to make it back from doing their reviews. And today was another example of that. I'll let Christy go more in depth with that, but we have come before you along with the City of Casper GIS and our GIS department of expanding or flying our county for the Eagle View maps, so that when these guys go out past 50 miles, and we've all been there, we travel these roads all the time, that we don't have cell service, we don't have internet service, they can't make a phone call back in. So when they're going 4 hours away to the edge of the county to pick up a building off of a permit or something that we have no communication. And today was probably the worst case out of all of them, but dogs have been sicked on them, police have been called on them, threatened to be shot I don't know how many times. And it's just getting to the point where I'm getting very uneasy about sending them out to do their job. So I'll let Christy speak.
Yes. So we have in the past talked to the staff, tried to come up with different safety measures. Right now, what's in place is if they go on a property and they feel uncomfortable or just something doesn't feel right, if they feel good enough to leave a sticky note, which we leave everywhere we go, that has our phone number on it, just to do that, try to get an updated photo. Some people are even agitated just with that, and we try not to go in the backyards anymore, and it's getting harder and harder to do our job safely. And basically, we've looked into, can we carry mace? Can we do this? Can we do that? It's all been no, 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 because, it might put us in a lawsuit. So basically, I'm sending the staff out. The only way they can protect themselves is with a clipboard. And we have had an instance where a dog tried to attack one of our staff. It did get a hold of the pants and the leg a little bit, but the clipboard is what saved her. And, it's hard for me as the supervisor to sit there every day, send these young people out, not knowing what they're going to run into. A lot of people don't like people coming on their property that's unannounced. They expect us to know everything. They think that our office is connected with, the building, like we get all of this information, which we do not. We're not even connected with the MLS. And, so it is so difficult. What I am pleading for is the Eagle View Fly. I have, just for information for today, I have utilized the Eagle View change finder. So what that does is you can put in a year, an older year to an updated year of the flight, and it'll show you the things that have changed. And it gives you the ability to turn that around, see underneath roofs. And that's fine for around town and in the county, but we're sending these young people out to places, like she said, 4 hours out to get one building. They don't know what they're coming up to. A lot of times they get out to these properties and they're locked out. Do we expect them to cross over gates to get the information that we need. That's not safe, and so you've spent 4 hours going to this property and you're not any more ahead of the game information-wise. And so we do have imagery in these farther out places, but it's only from top view down, so we can't see what the building actually is, get proper measurements or any of that. So I am asking, for their safety. It's a need, it's a necessity. Using Change Finder just for myself, for 19 days, I was able to go through 771 accounts to update. And so it is very, very cost effective. I know it's expensive on the front end, but when it comes to these people's safety, I see that it's necessary.
We try to be very transparent with the public, which, since I've come into the office to try to do that and be diligent in getting the records correct and to where we get on this 6-year rotation, all of our ag is already there. We are doing about 10,000 reviews a year, if not more. And that also includes the appeals. And just in this year's findings of our reviews and putting into place procedures where these guys literally, if it says no trespassing, we don't trespass. We come back, we'll try to find a phone number or mail a letter to let them know we're coming. But we can't do that with over 8,000 to 10,000 reviews in a year. So when we're working off of the building permits and other things that come in, SOCs and sales, again, it has been a lot in the last 3 to 4 weeks that almost daily I get a phone call, either from my staff telling me that they're not able to be let go, that the man is, they might be in their car, but he's telling them you're not leaving the property. So we've had that. We've had the incident today, and several other incidents that have happened. And I would like to work with you all to see what we can do to either help protect ourselves when we're out there in the field. It's not going to be beneficial to us or a police officer or a sheriff deputy to go with us every time we have to go out in the boonies somewhere. So any help would be grateful. Any suggestions of trying to work with you all and with us to make them feel safe doing their job, because it's not going to be worth it if somebody comes back hurt.
Eileen, our director of IT, is here. She had mentioned, I believe, working on the contract with Eagle View as we speak. Can we get a number? We know it's really expensive. And we tried to see what we could do to, we refined the area.
Right.
We kind of made it a little smaller, did what we
Yep.
could. But if we can at least get a number for the change finder, and I guess you're asking for countywide?
It would be beneficial, and it's not only going to help our office, it's going to help other entities as well. Search and rescue being one of the biggest, I guess, that would be able to access any of that information out there. But yeah, I have not, I believe with Eileen, Denise, and forgive me, it's been a few months since we had that conversation, that I don't remember exactly what the numbers were or what it would entail to fly the whole county,
Well,
even at a different pixel than the stuff within what we've already flown.
we can look into that. I don't know. I mean, it was like $300,000, wasn't it? It was just for what we did.
Mr. Chairman, and recently when we went through this as a group, you know, we tailored the flyover where we're looking at the pixel and all that. We're trying to be cost effective and tailor that to the main areas of residence or where people are starting to build, such as off rattlesnakes and up around and on the west side of town and the like. But where it was just scrub and prairie, we minimized that.
Right.
I mean,
And we
I don't
yeah, we understand that. It just, we get these random things, and kind of like out in Armeno, I mean, those towns aren't growing yet, but even just this year, we've had sales in Powder River and Midwest and Edgerton, which they've stayed dormant for years. And so we're starting to see some movement in these areas and places that we've never been because we can't get there.
And the other problem is when they're out there that far, a lot of the stuff that's going on, they're not getting building permits. And so when they see us, they're not happy. And, you know, it is a scary situation to get out there and know that you're not going to have help for hours sometimes if you need it.
You know, I don't know if there's training that we can do to help protect ourselves. I don't know. We're just kind of, I wanted to let you guys be aware of what was happening, and it has gotten really bad in the last month. It's escalating, and I don't feel good about it. Before, even last week, I pulled them in.
What
And
happened? What happened today?
Go ahead, and the
Well,
incident with today.
I brought the staff, if you would like to, if it's okay with you, can they tell you how they feel when they get approached and in situations that they've been in
Sure,
recently?
we have time.
Okay.
Let's go.
This is Haley.
Hello. So what happened today is we were at a property and the homeowner wasn't there. We knocked, left a door hanger, our protocol that we do. We had to pick up the house. We had to remeasure it because it was a demoed house. And they put a new one, they built a new one. We got approached by a neighbor across the street and he made a comment that Jason, the owner of the house that we were at, wasn't going to be too happy that we were there because they've been fighting with Mills about other things. He didn't go into detail. So he told us to sit there and wait for Jason to come there so we could talk to him. Well, I said, no, I'm not sitting and waiting because I've already been told that this man is not happy with Mills. So he's just not going to be happy that we're there. So we did our stuff, we checked our measurements, and then we left. And then the main office got a phone call from the neighbor, from Jason, the owner, that he was upset that we weren't, or that we were on the property, and he wanted us to come back out so that he could, who knows what, confront us. He was very upset on the phone. Renee told him, no, we're not sending our field out just for you to confront them. So he was very upset, and who knows what would have happened if we would have stuck around to meet him at his property. So it's just stuff like that. Oh, okay. you want me to read all this? Okay.
To come back out, to confront them, to know why they were there,
Yeah.
and I'm not gonna put them in that kind of situation. If anybody goes back out, it'll be me with the sheriff.
Is that his email to you?
That is an incident report that Renee wrote up after her phone call with him today.
We take a look
Yep.
at it. if you want us to.
Yeah.
And I have instructed the staff that always have a way out. We've tried to put in safety measures any way we can come up with thinking, you know, don't ever park where you're gonna get blocked in, because that has happened as well. And so always have a way out, you know, because everybody has cameras. If they don't have cameras, they've got neighbors. So, you know, they're very respectful when they're on the property. They don't look in windows, you know, they're there to do the job and get as much of the best information possible. And it has really escalated with people. We've got emblems on our cars, we've got business cards that they can have.
Our best.
Oh, our
Vests,
vests,
name
yeah.
tags.
I mean, we've done everything possible to try to let people know when they see us coming, they know who we are. And, you know, it's hard. Thank you, Haley.
Mhm.
Thank you, Haley.
This is Katie.
Hi, Katie.
Hello. I'll tell you about the experience where we were held. I believe it was last week. We got there, we obviously knocked, left a door hanger, nobody was home. We decided to stay near the car because we were out off of Horseshoe Road. It is very rural. I can't say the word, sorry. It's very open out there. We stayed near the car, took pictures of all the buildings that we could. We were getting back to the car and a white pickup truck decided to roll up on us really fast, parked next to us, was very verbally aggressive, saying, "Who are you? What are you doing here? You can't be here. You can't legally be here. You know, why are you taking pictures? You've been walking around on my property." So my partner, Caitlin, at the time was trying to console him, explain who we were. Please call my supervisor. Please call the main office. Speak to somebody if you are upset with us being here. Then he accused us of taking things off his property. We were confused. He said the pictures. We told him, please call. They will explain the process to you. Then he told us we could not leave until he spoke to somebody. So once he rolled up his window, I immediately called Christy, told her the situation, that he was calling the main office. Once I got off the phone with her, I told my partner, make sure you've got your seatbelt on, because if this gets real, gravel's gonna fly, because I've got to get us out of here if it gets dangerous. And we did feel pretty on edge. We were both calm, but we felt very on edge. We weren't sure what was gonna happen. It was definitely, she made us come back after that. So it's not the first time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And this is Tyler. He's one of our newer employees.
Chairman. So, like she said, I'm one of the newer employees. I've been hired on for 3 months to the day, actually. June 3rd was my first day. Personally, I've had a history of customer service. That's basically what my resume looks like. And as I can recall, none of my customer service interactions, even the most hostile ones, have been as on edge and really hostile as these past incidences that have happened within these past weeks. And by my count, we have had at least one incident per week in just the last month of us being threatened, us going to a property and somebody being verbally aggressive with us. Even Friday, I believe it was it was just me and you, wasn't it? Me and Katie. We were out at a property and we came through the ranch gates. There were 2 sets of gates. We closed them as we came in. We drove up to the house, turned around so that we could easily get back into our truck and leave if need be. We walked up to the barn slash house. It was very obvious they were building a living area upon the back half of the barn. And I knocked on both doors that were available, right where the driveway terminated. No one answered. So I put a sticky note on one of the doors and we got to measuring. Turns out somebody was home and they came out of the house and accused me, or well, both of us, of not knocking, who are you, why are you on our property, etc., etc. We tried to politely explain to them we are with the county assessor's office. We're here for our review to make sure that all of our data is up to date and accurate. They didn't like that answer at all. They started saying that it is illegal for us to be out there. How did we even get in here? And we needed to have notice for them that we were coming. Now, regardless if they confused us with a different office. So we tried explaining the state statute that is on the back of our ID cards that basically says that as the assessor's office, we are allowed to be on these properties to do our job, to make sure that the buildings as they physically are there and in our system. They didn't like that answer either. So the lady who had come out of the house now goes into the house and gets her elderly parents who demand us that we leave. So we did. We have no data on that, on the new additions for that barn, house, whatever.
Thank you, Tyler.
Yeah.
I have a couple questions for the assessor when they're done.
Commissioner,
How are you, Madam Assessor?
On edge.
I know, I don't doubt it a bit, but I know you're doing a good job for the county. Do you send out notification, like, would you send out a letter to these people saying there's going to be assessor's office people come to your property in the next week?
We have not, the last time that I personally remember sending anything out like that was back when Assessor Smith was still here and doing a review in Fort Casper area. That was the last
Do you think that'd do any
time.
good?
It honestly didn't change much. We've always had the aggressive taxpayer or upset taxpayer, but I don't, like I said, I don't know what's happening, but it's just kind of escalating.
Are your vehicles clearly marked? I can't
Yes.
remember.
Yeah.
So the
We have-
neighbor guy in this first one could have seen who you were and all of that kind of thing.
Easily.
But you think the answer then is this new program?
Eagle View would make it much easier. We wouldn't have to hire,
You wouldn't have to
More
send the
help.
people out? Is that big?
and we wouldn't have to send them clear out to these rural areas where, you know, even in Midwest and Edgerton, you get hit and miss reception out there.
Tammy, is it getting to the point where you can do all this electronically?
Pretty close.
And that's what you really want? You want to bring it up to date? And
That would be nice. again, you know, we're not trying to, this is not to make the taxpayer unhappy or try to tax them out of their house or anything, but we're still bound by statutes and rules and laws that we have to pick up this stuff. And not everyone is going to pull a building permit or a demo permit. It's hard to get the other entities, Barnett and Evansville Mills, to get those permits and demo permits to us. We try to work hard. I've been trying to rebuild all of those communications with everyone and working with those offices to make it a better process and to flow easier. We've gone over and over in our office and have asked our staff members, you know, what's it going to take to make it easier? And I guess we just feel like it's getting to the point where it's getting scary out there.
How many of these do you estimate you do a year?
Probably over about 10,000 or
Oh
more.
my gosh, yeah. That you
Yeah.
send your people
And
out
we
to
do post, we try to get our website updated to where they're gonna be for that week. And like I said, for the last at least 3 weeks, maybe 4 now, Christy calls the non-emergency number and gives them an update. How
I
many
tell 'em what
teams
they're
are out?
driving and
Yeah.
everything.
What
And you're just doing your job, basically.
Yeah.
We're trying to.
Commissioner Friel.
Tammy, so if you send a group, one of your groups out, how many properties do they visit on average per day?
They could get anywhere between, I would say, 20 to 50.
Okay. So obviously, I probably know the answer to this question, but phone calls are not made ahead of time telling people, hey, the assessor's office is coming
A lot of
out.
times we don't have phone numbers, but if we do get a taxpayer who comes in or does call us and they need a review, then we do ask, and then Christy will call them and set up a scheduled time for them. So we do our very best to do that all year through, but when we're just out doing, like we've been working from 21st Street to 2nd Street, so south to north, and then east to west from Beverly over down to Poplar. That's our review section for this year. And we're probably a quarter into it. We could send out letters to each one of those homeowners. The people that aren't going to get it are, of course, the renters. We could try that again, but it's just more money for the postage and I don't know. I don't
So if
know.
I can make-
I don't know which way to go.
If I could make a suggestion, I think listening to what you're saying and what everybody's saying here, to me, it's somebody showing up on my property. They don't belong here, and they didn't ask me permission to come out here. And so people are naturally upset because they don't know who you are. And then when they do find out who you are, they're even more upset. If they had a heads up that you were coming, that could possibly curb.
It could.
It could calm things down a little bit. The suggestion I would make, it's not a matter of a letter, and maybe the sheriff will know what I'm talking, I'm sure he'll know what I'm talking about. There is a program called Forewarn, and it is the makers of TLO out of Boca Raton, Florida. It's a law enforcement program that in TLO, you wouldn't have access to that, but that would tell you everything you ever need to know about a person. Well, Forewarn is a broken down version or a lesser version. It's not going to give you the information you get through TLO, but it certainly will give you the information you need. You can put in an address. It's going to tell you who lives there. It's going to tell you what their phone numbers are, any phone numbers that they have. It will tell you, and I don't know why it doesn't, it depends on certain counties in the state of Wyoming. I know that over in Fremont County, they turned their criminal history program on to where people can review that stuff over there. Here in Natrona County, we can't, but we can look at it and see if there's sex offenders that are involved. But if anybody has a criminal history that's actually open source information, you're gonna know by looking at it that, hey, I'm going to this property and this guy's a sex offender. Probably ought to send some extra people out there on that one. Or this person has been convicted of robbery, he's been convicted of homicide, whatever it might be. Probably ought to see if the sheriff wants to go with me or the PD wants to go over while we talk to him. But you can make those phone calls ahead of time, and I guarantee you by calling them, that's probably going to calm the situation down, like tremendously, by letting them know that you're coming, first of all. But I think that program, and it's not very expensive, it's the same company that makes TLO, but it's not an expensive program that you could supply that to everybody here, and you'd be able to, even while you're driving to the address, punch in the address and who am I dealing with here, and I'm going to make a phone call and see if I can get a hold of them and say, hey, look, this is so-and-so from the assessor's office. We need to come out and take some real quick measurements. We're going to be there in about 10 minutes. Somebody's going to be home. I guarantee you that is going to be a less expensive way to at least try and take care of this problem somewhat and head it off. If it doesn't, then I guess maybe you look at the $300,000 approach. But I just think that something like this, you have something else in place that could potentially take care of your problem.
Tammy, I want to echo some of those comments that Commissioner Friel made. Our ranch deals with people being out there all throughout the year. Hunting season is typically one of the worst times. And as a landowner, when you're used to seeing a lot more antelope and cows than you are people out in those rural areas, I think that the mentality of a lot of people in the ag business or that have acreage is going to be, who the F is this? And why are they here? And why didn't they call? And that's how you start, that's how you go into the conversation. Now, fortunately, a lot of times people cool off and people are like, oh, okay, you know, they have a reason, they tried to get a hold of me, whatever, there was an emergency. So I think that to the extent you can provide some sort of notice, I think it'll be good. And I think that you could put in an extra little piece of paper when you mail out property tax notices each year, a little pink slip of paper that says, hey, your home may be, and maybe you know where you're even gonna go, so maybe you only put it on those 10,000 versus all of them every year. But at least you can say, we plan on being out there in the next 12 months. And so our field staff and our vehicles are adequately, you know, we have uniforms and all that stuff. But I think that that'll help you out. I don't know anything about this program
Yeah, I've never
or this
heard of that before.
technology. If it's not super expensive, you know, great. I think that we ought to look into that. I think you could look into, and I hate to even mention this because I'm not completely comfortable with the technology, or at least I don't know enough about it, but Starlink, everybody that has Starlink says it's like having a copper landline in terms of the connection quality wherever you are. So if your field crews had a Starlink subscription, I think that's cheaper than a sat phone, but the old school satellite phones.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
at least
I'm not sure it would be something
if they're
that
going,
we'd have to ask IT about.
yeah, if they're going way out in the boonies where you know it's a given that they're not going to have cell reception, then at least they'll be able to make that call in the event of an emergency or if they need an assist or something like that. You know, and finally, maybe you have a list of problem property owners that you can get together with the sheriff and try and brainstorm, and maybe his deputy will be heading out that direction, at least
Right.
be in the vicinity.
Yeah, and
kind of
I
have
want to
comments.
get with the sheriff too. You know, by law, we can be on the property. And again, I don't want to cause problems for the property owner or for us. but we have a job to do. And they can be fined.
Well,
The
Tammy-
statute clearly says that, but I don't want to, I don't want one of my staff members to be hurt,
Nor
so.
do we.
And some of these programs I've never even heard of, so I'd be happy.
Anytime the government says we have a right to be on your property, you may be at
Yeah.
least expressing
No,
yourself,
oh,
in a
yeah.
less
No,
than perfect
I
way.
get it, I understand.
So the attitude, the power of government may clearly be there. But the Department of Revenue and the legislators that made that law and gave you that authority, they're not in your back pocket.
No.
They're not sitting in the back of the truck.
No,
So the attitude, and I think that you're training and I think that what you're doing is good, but I just think that you just have to understand that them's fighting words sometimes. Commissioner Laird?
oh, yeah.
God, I just had another comment because I recall something that happened to me. I see these two guys out in my backyard. I live on Garden Creek. And they've got these yellow vests on, and they've got this kind of a long tool that they're digging in. So I go back there and I say, "What are you guys doing in my yard?" "Well, we work for the city. We're collecting weed samples." And I said, "Well, what's your name?" They didn't want to give me the name. Well, then I know somebody I call in the city. They didn't work for the city. Now, that happens to people. They can have a fake medallion on their car and go out there and say, "We're with the assessor," and they rob the house. So there are people who have that in their mind
Right.
that can happen to them. After this happened with me, I put up a big fence out in my backyard. I have a 6-foot fence running down there that I never watched.
Right, and we don't want to be disrespectful to anyone's
But
property.
here's the point, Tammy.
but-
Here's the point. There's people who will scam other people and come in a assessor's car if they could get one.
Yes,
So I see the issue. I also see, because I don't want any of these lovely people, your entourage here, I don't want to see anything happen bad to them at all. Now, you get back to this other program, I'm thinking that's coming someday. It's but like the chairman says it, I remember it being $300,000 or $400,000. But I think that a lot of it is notifying people. You have their email now. They can get an email that morning. And they get it there, and you say, "Go check your email. It came directly from our office. It has the assessor's logo on it, can only come there. You can verify that I'm with the assessor." Now, that's where I would be the most bothered. Because I've had this happen twice. Some other guy's back there claiming he works for the power company. He's never been there. So I let him go back there. I happened to notice the tennis shoe marks in the snow back there where he says he's never been were the same marks he was making now when he was coming back there. So he lied to me. So that happens to people, and they're going to get upset. Now, if I had something where I knew this guy was coming, it would be a different matter, for me at least. Now, there's some people who just don't want you out there. I get that. But I think that for the safety of your people, there should be notification to these people that are coming by email, by mail, whatever. It'd be cheapest with email. You get all our email addresses anyway. And then if you've got people that are just plain bums, then I'd say take the sheriff out there and get it known. But you do have to worry. People do have to protect themselves out there because they're subject to
yeah.
being robbed. They're subject to things happening to them. If they saw this lovely lady there last year, then they would know.
Commissioner Friel.
But I like the idea of getting the other project going too.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, all I was going to add, Tammy, was that I'll get you the information on Forewarn. I think
Okay.
it would be a good program for you. We literally rolled it out to almost 400 realtors just because of the fact that of the people they deal with, that you just have some people in life that are shady people. And so that was the purpose that we looked into it, and it's been a great program. We got some people that absolutely will not use it, don't want to use it, don't care to use it. But I can tell you there's plenty of people that have that literally that gut feeling that they got, they were able to confirm and they make sure that they have
We're
somebody.
just
with-
asking, for suggestions and letting you guys aware of what is happening, so.
Well, it's a big It's a big problem. It's a problem that shouldn't happen, and I'm sorry that it is on a daily basis and certainly on a weekly basis. And you guys are doing important work for our county, and we appreciate you. And talk about a thankless job, right? So we will do what we can. Obviously, there are financial considerations, but there may be a number of things we can do between, what you have now and getting new Eagle View software. So let's just keep having a conversation. Commissioner Mel?
Okay.
Tammy, when you select the blocks or whatever to be reviewed, how far in the future are you planning?
As soon as we're done with one area, we start again. So I'm gonna say maybe a month or 2 months, and then we kind of fine tune it from there.
So
It's not undoable with,
right, so potentially if you're doing these blocks, right, of areas, and it's a month, 2 months pre-planning, would it be, instead of, sending out a blast of letters or contacts or whatever, or maybe even online with our online stuff, you could have the notice, hey, this is the areas we're gonna be covering.
and we do
You
that,
send
yeah.
the emails or the letters out the month before, hey, we're coming to your neighborhood. I mean, or if you're going more than 40 minutes outside town, try to get a hold of people, because rather than drive 40 minutes to
Right.
a locked gate where then you can't get to the place anyways.
Well, and
It's
most
saving
of the,
time and being more
yeah,
effective.
most of these incidents here have been in town. And to me, that's even scarier because just, I see the changes in my neighborhood and I'm very aware of, oh, that's a new person walking down my street. Are they casing our houses or what it's just an unsettling time for whatever reason. And, sure, we can set aside a week and plan out where we're gonna be and send letters. Try that again,
Just
see if it helps.
To Commissioner
And-
Frill's point, a
Yeah,
little
and
notice
use
may go a
that
long way.
too, to see where
And
the
in the
areas are
past,
best.
we have collected information that was online that we were locked out. So we collected all that information. We sent letters to all of those places. I think we got 4 back out of a whole huge file of, please contact us so we can set up a meeting.
And I get the fear
It's
that
hard.
they don't want taxes to
want us
go
on
up
there,
or
yeah.
whatever, but hopefully with the changes in legislation, that will help ease some of this stuff for at least the next 2 years. But we just wanted to make you guys aware and to get suggestions of how we can
Do
make
this
it better
safely.
and do it more safe.
Yeah.
So I appreciate it and the advice, so
Yeah,
That's-
work with Eileen, work with our sheriff or
I'll
his
ask him
people.
about that, so yeah.
Some, in the doctor's office or the dentist's office, those recorded, those recordings on your answering machine. It'd be sweet if we had in your program that you already have, just, you type in the address and they call 24 hours in advance or send out a.
Well, that might be
auto-generated
something
letter.
too we can implement, because we did do that with employee call-ins for being sick, so that's a possibility. So yes.
Well, thanks for your time.
Thank you
and-
for listening and the feedback. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and maybe we can hear back from you after you have some more discussions in,
Okay.
I don't know, about 2 weeks, but a month?
Yeah.
We'll look at our
We'll see,
calendar and
yeah.
see, okay, get in touch with Michelle or me and we'll
Okay.
get you here in front of us again.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for your
Thanks.
time.
Yep. Our next item is our legal update from our county attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I think the first item is, are there any questions about any of the consent agenda items for approval this evening? Sorry. I'm just asking if you had any questions about anything on the consent agenda for this evening.
Did we get attachment A to the DFS TANF agreement?
Don't know if we did. I can
Okay.
ask Lita if she's received anything.
Okay. I didn't have any questions. I'll probably give a little airport update during the roundtable, and I can just briefly touch on that, that contract. Commissioners, any questions on the consent agenda items? Oh, what's, Madam Clerk, maybe this one's for you. On statement of earnings, what's a public surplus of $30,000?
I don't know. Your typo?
I just don't remember seeing that category
Yeah, Mr.
under,
Chairman, I'll have to confer with Michelle, I'm not sure. I
okay.
don't recall that, category either.
Okay. Any questions? No, I don't think we have anything then
Okay.
on the consent.
All right, thank you. I guess just as a further update, as the sheriff mentioned, the Settler Wind project, there's a pre-hearing conference this coming Friday. And then this is scheduled before the Industrial Siting Commission for a hearing starting September 17th. And then not long after that, the Dutchman Solar Project, also in Converse County, will be underway as well. So we will likely be involved in that project and proceeding as well. Just, I'm sure you're all aware, but we've just sent out notices and posted a notice for the public hearing for Circle Drive. That's scheduled for October 9th, starting at 8:30 as well.
October 9th at 8:30.
Yes.
And I believe we're planning on the entire day.
You could very, very likely go that long.
Okay. And we'll have Mr. Heiser here assisting. And then is it Mr. Silva will be the hearing officer?
Mr. Ford, Mr. Ryan Ford.
Oh, I apologize. Sorry. Mr. Ford. Okay. What date is that again? October 9.
That's a Wednesday. Speaking of Mr. Silva, he sent an email. He is currently our bar commissioner. He sent an email that you may have received and Mr. Laird may have received, discussing the election of new bar officers. But what's I think of import to the county has to do with the law library. When the e-filing becomes mandatory, the excess amount that we currently receive as part of the filing fee, that will not be coming in. So there will not be an income for the law library and for the Westlaw subscription that the Bar Association currently pays for. So I think that it might be a good idea to have him and Ms. Keister from the Clerk of District Court's office come in to talk about whether the commissioners have any desire to try to take over management of the law library again. There's a specific statute that allows you to do that. And it used to be that way many years ago, but for many years, the Bar Association has been the organization that has maintained the law library.
Mr. Chairman. Allows, but does it allow or shall
Shall have the
require?
power to establish and maintain in their respective counties a county law library.
But it doesn't say we have to.
I I don't think I would take this to mean that you have to have it. It's also for the use and benefit of the judge of district court and the other citizens of the state. So perhaps it also is a discussion to have with the district court judges, whether they feel that it's necessary. At any rate, I just wanted to make you aware that that has just recently come up.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to know how many people use that now.
That's exactly what I was going to ask is, you know, I used it in 1998. But I think a lot's changed, including fewer and fewer books.
I believe
Well, I
that's
used
true.
it in 1978.
Where did you come down? Did you
I
read-
did. I came down and used the books, but then when everything went to digital, then
Yeah, I think we'll want to know not just what it costs, but also, well, is there a value to the public and to the county? And I'm sure arguments could be made either way. So with the e-filing, you know, formerly, like when someone filed a complaint, there'd be $10, $15, $20 that would go into this fund.
That's correct. Yep.
And are we now saying that people who are going to be e-filing don't have that same need? Because I'm not getting it, that, I don't understand that.
As far as I'm aware, that option is optional, basically. So when you file, you can opt in to pay the extra money.
Did I
So
laugh out loud?
we can assume that people are not going to opt in to do that in most instances, I think, going forward, once this is mandatory.
Okay, well, I'm sure there's a story behind why that's optional rather than mandatory. Okay. Well, I made a note and we'll follow up and maybe have a visit with some folks from across the street.
Sounds good. I just wanted to make you aware that that had come about recently. Our office, we have a kind of a working draft of some bylaws to send out to you for the Parks Board to consider. So we'll get that sent to you along with some examples of some of the other boards and their bylaws in the next few days. So you can have that to look at before your next Parks Board meeting, whenever that's scheduled. And then we've recently looked more closely at the uses of potentially using the opioid funds that the county's receiving. So far, we've not spent any of that money. I don't have that specific information in front of me, but it sounds like the uses are fairly broad. So there's a lot of possible things that money could be used for. But we'll put together some options for you. And Lita says that I think attachment A has been emailed to me. So I can print that out and get it to you when I get a chance here. In addition to that, we're still working, and now that we're fully staffed as well, we're working on some of the bigger projects and hope to have you an MOU with respect to the land swap soon. My counterpart at the city has been out of town for a bit, so that was delayed a little bit, but hope to have that to you here soon. And that's about all I have, unless you guys have some questions about anything in particular.
I see a email from Tracy Svee that she needs an update. I know you were about to send the license. Would you follow up with her? I assume she hasn't received it yet.
I sent it to her a little earlier this afternoon.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. There we go. One of the things on my mind was whether the Casper carbon capture project out off of the Hat 6 Road is an industrial siting jurisdictional project. And then the second question is whether or not there's a conditional use permit process for that or any other process invoking the county jurisdiction.
I don't know whether it's an industrial siding project. I feel fairly confident that we don't address it in our zoning resolution currently, something of that nature, the way that it's currently drafted.
And there isn't some sort of catch-all for industrial projects?
Not that I recall seeing. Jared may have a better handle on that than I do, but I can look real quick, but I don't remember seeing a catch-all like that.
Michael Brown was going to send to the commission the current working version of the parks rules and some of the red lines that he and the advisory former board members had come up with. And so he'll be sending that to us. Maybe Steve, maybe Commissioner Friel, that was in your notes from this morning, but you know, kind of fits in with Heather's mention of bylaws and some governance stuff. So we will try to figure out the next time to hold a Parks Board meeting. Okay, anything else for Heather?
The only question I had on the land swap, was it both land swaps you're working on? The one,
Yes, so one with Mr. Barb, who was going to look into it, and I haven't heard back from him, so it's time for me to reach back out to him to see if he's been able to look at that more closely. And then the other with Mr. Nelson.
okay.
And Mr. Chairman, I don't see anything in the zoning resolution that would appear to cover that type of project.
Okay. With regard to Metro, I had spoken with, I think, both of you, but I also spoke with Carter, our city manager, and kind of went over, got some additional information. Really nothing to report. I think that somebody is working on MOU, but I don't know if I've seen one. Do we, go ahead, Heather.
I know that Lita was working on some changes to it with Wallace from the city attorney's office. So
Right.
hopefully we'll have another updated version to send to you guys to take a look at.
Okay, I think we probably ought to put that on our next working session. It ought to be done by then.
If I can just add to that too, it's, I said before it was a joint powers board. It's not, it's population based, so it's not really going back to a joint powers board. It's just your portion of the population of whatever jurisdiction you're in is the amount you pay.
Thank you. Anything else, Heather, or for Heather? Okay, thank you. Then we'll move into roundtable. Commissioner Laird.
Is that carbon recapture, is that a done deal? Now, do we have to approve anything or disapprove anything?
No, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Laird, we haven't, I think we just received kind of an informational update when those folks came to see you a couple months ago or so. We don't have anything currently pending with respect to that project for right now.
I know I've been asked about it. A lot of people are not highly in favor of doing that. They think it's dangerous. So I don't know, is it something we ultimately have to approve?
I don't see that that type of project is currently contemplated by our zoning resolution. So I think that for it to be considered by the board, there'd likely have to be a text amendment to bring that in with specific information about that type of project.
Well, let's do that. No, I mean, I've been hearing since I'm out in that area. And I personally have some questions about it. I know that the DEQ process is moving forward. I think maybe the Oil and Gas Commission process is underway. You know, there's a guy that lives across the highway. And the plume is supposed to be under his land, and he has his water well there. There's a neighborhood to the north, to the south just a little bit, it's the Goose Creek area. It's not too far from town. I mean, it seems to me that the public ought to know more rather than less. And to the extent that, you know, we're like, well, it's new technology, that's not a great answer, even if it is the answer, because there's always going to be new technology, and playing catch up as government sucks. So if we can say, okay, or equivalent, you know, industrial usage within, pick a distance, pick a reasonable distance, 5 miles of the city of Casper, or any municipal or town boundary. I don't know, but you know, we get kind of, I don't know, I feel like we're behind the 8 ball on these things and being reactive. So I'm somewhat serious when I say maybe we do need to consider some sort of text amendment that has some flexibility. And I haven't focused on the zoning resolution for quite a while.
We'll do, like your ranches out there, Mr. Chairman, do you get paid for that if they put that in? There's no economic benefit to any ranchers if they're burying that plume underneath their ground?
I don't know. Our family doesn't have any agreement with them. I think there are 2 separate things. I think there's the mineral ownership, and I think there's then the surface ownership. I know that the primary landowner out there, Russell Gordy, is one of the principals of this company.
Oh.
So there's that's the deal there.
So with respect to our zoning rules, Mr. Werger spoke to me about the one where they want to change MR1 and take the allowances of mining out of the zoning. And I'm wondering what's happening to that. He seemed to think that the county attorney's office was holding that up for some reason, time-wise, to have that introduced for us, for our consideration. And Heather would probably be the one to answer that.
Well, let me say that at the department head meeting this morning, our planning supervisor, deputy county attorney, Jared Holbrook, actually mentioned that is moving forward. Is it next week in front of planning and zoning? And then it comes to us there was specific, I thought he gave us a specific date for that too.
Should be in the notes.
It's in the notes that Commissioner Friel sent to us today. So I don't think it's being hung up. I think it's moving forward.
Okay, yeah, because I keep hearing all kinds of different rumors about all of that, as you guys probably do. In fact, I don't think I go a day without somebody talking about the gravel pit and the hospital. But I'm wary of passing any kind of commissioner action where it would deprive the commission of being ultimately responsible for making certain decisions.
What are you referring to?
Well, I don't know the extent, I'm for a county manager. I don't know the extent of what, something I've read where it almost appeared to me that if the county manager made the decision, the commission couldn't overturn that or overrule that or wouldn't have some say in employee conduct or employee employment or things like that. And where I first tasted that a little bit was when we had the issue concerning the new rules that were passed before I was a commissioner on people out in the county wanting some variance. And the way that rule was passed, there's 7 conditions they have to meet, which after I analyzed that legally, I think what that says is you can't get a variance, period. Doesn't say it exactly that way, but I've been suggesting that then when I go back and look at the statutes, the commissioners have the authority to, if it's the, quorum, can grant a variance, and that rule really wouldn't apply to them, but we haven't done it that way. And so I'm just throwing that out, and I think, we've got a few months left. Maybe we could straighten a couple of these things out if the other commissioners believe that we should straighten it out. So that's all I have to say today about that.
Well, in general, the conditions for a variance that the county has had and continues to have are similar to those that have been used across the United States for decades and decades. And it's a fairly, generally accepted process. So if there's some specifics to talk about, I'm happy to talk about that. I'm just talking generally speaking, variances can be granted and conditions can be met. But I want to, I invited Danielle Kruchek here from our HR director to talk about county manager and that position. She's done a little bit of research and homework, and I'd go ahead and invite you to come up at this point, since Commissioner Laird mentioned it. Let's not keep you waiting any longer.
I just want to make one comment, Mr. Chairman. There's the world and there's Wyoming. And sometimes they're two different things.
Commissioners, so I sent you an email on a draft county administrator job description that was drafted back in October of 2020 when this conversation came up before. The job description was a combination of a couple of other county administrator job descriptions in Wyoming from Campbell County and Teton County. They both have county administrators. I also sent you information from NACO on county administrators. The last thing that I can find from NACO on county administrators was from June of 2015. At that time, 43% of counties had appointed an administrator, so a little less than half. There was 1,322 counties. They all, there's 115 different titles and positions, but it's basically a county administrator. What else? I guess I would open it up. What questions do you have of me? We've discussed this a couple times and brought it up a couple of different times. So what questions would you have of me?
I have a question. Just a general question. What is your viewpoint of what a county manager would be doing? Just give me your own viewpoint.
Well, I think it would be much like our city manager, much like Carter.
Well,
And
there's
managing.
Statutorily, though, the setup there is much different because the statute is that you have a county manager, you have a mayor and a city council who really don't have that much authority. They didn't like something the county over there that the manager did, and they didn't like it. Their only alternative would be to fire the manager. And I don't know that I like that idea, but that's where it is. But it's a different concept in the city than I would have thought in the county, because the city's a statutorily supported here, it's the commissioners deciding what is best for the commission and the county of Natrona County. So tell me what you think would be the duties of a commissioner, of this chairman, or of this manager here, exactly.
Well, look, in the end, Commissioner Laird, I'm just bringing the research forward. I'm not necessarily advocating for this. But what I will say, the person in Teton County, she indicated that 40 to 50% of her time is spent managing the departments which report directly to the BOCC. She said probably around another 40% of the time is working with the commissioners to basically keep them on track. And she helps prepare a 2-year plan, which coincides with the election. And then she said approximately 20% of her time is representing the county to outside entities, whether that's the town of Jackson, other governmental agencies, nonprofits, or other local stakeholder groups.
Does she hire and fire people?
She can, yes.
Okay. What about the other county? You said there's 2 counties?
Yes, the other one is Campbell County. Let me see.
Teton County, I will only listen to that just kind of temporarily.
Campbell County is a little bit different. It's structured a little bit differently. That position is called the county administrator, but they are equivalent to a department head. So they work closely with the department heads and the elected officials with budgeting and trying to keep projects and strategic planning moving forward, but they are considered the department head level. That's how it works in Campbell County.
I kind of like the sound of that. So how do they view it in Teton County?
It's like the city manager. It's above. They supervise the department heads. They're not equivalent.
I like personally, I like the Campbell County sound better than I do the Teton County. But that's just, I don't think we really discussed it that much, but I'm glad we're having this discussion. What does that pay? What do they get paid, you know?
Well, the Campbell County one, the minimum is, it's in their department heads. All their department heads are in the same category for pay. So the minimum is 104,000, midpoint is 132, max is 161. And I'm told that that position, most of their department heads are closer to that max.
And both
That's
county-
Campbell County.
And Campbell County, is it the same thing in Teton County?
No, I do not have the pay in Teton County. I do not have hers, which I didn't even ask. I certainly can. I'm sure it's well over 200 being in Teton County.
Yeah, maybe. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have anything further.
Any other questions for me?
Well, thank you for spending some more time on this. As I look through the job description, I think there are clearly some things that are general to the extent I don't have a comfort level with them. It'd be like, yeah, I might be okay with that, that duty and responsibility, or no, that's really more our job.
Yeah.
That it's one of those things where I think it can vary from county to county, and I think ours would be, different still and maybe it's somewhere in between. You've given this thought. I just wanted to see if you had any ideas on the pros and cons of having it be a position equivalent to department head. I mean, it'd be someone to facilitate. It wouldn't be Danielle's boss or Michael Brown's boss. I think I see some pros and cons, but maybe you can kind of give me some of your thoughts on it. If that's the one Commissioner Laird is circling around a little bit, I don't know what's the best, and I think we're all just talking at early stages. So, what are your thoughts?
So one thing that I have learned in my research was there was a county administrator for Natrona County before in the early 2000s. Is that correct? The early 2000s?
I don't know the date, but yeah.
Yeah. So there was one before. That position was here that person was here in that position for around 15 months. It did not go over well. I don't know if it was the person or if it was the actual position itself, but after 15 months, the position was eliminated and the person was no longer with us.
And was that an department equivalent, or was that a department supervisor?
I'm told it was a supervisor over the department heads. And I'm told where some of it went south and what I could find was some of the elected officials also not being happy with how that position was diving into some of their duties under their statutes.
Can you be more specific without revealing elected officials?
Well, for example,
Like,
one
is it on
thing.
the budgeting side, or?
Yes, one thing I did find under budgeting was there was an elected official who did not want to give out their budget information and was making it difficult for the county administrator at the time to get the budget information. So the county administrator actually had to file a public request notice or a public request for information in order to get the information. So it wasn't being effective. Things weren't working. I mean, they weren't working together on the budget process. And I will say, it wasn't the treasurer or the clerk. It was another elected official.
No.
Because they are the ones who deal with the money. It was not them, but it was a different elected official.
Well, it's a little interesting in that our clerk works, I think, pretty closely with elected officials and department heads, and, you know, that they provide a lot of information to her for budgetary purposes.
One thing that I can tell you from Teton County, and I'll just tell you exactly what she had said. I asked specifically what the role she plays in the budgeting process, and she had said that she works with the clerk and the treasurer, and they have clearly defined roles. She works with the department heads to prepare budgets and makes recommendations to the BOCC on funding levels and helps to ensure the allocation of funds track the strategic goals of the BOCC. She coordinates giving quarterly updates on the budget situation. I asked her how she interacted with the treasurer and how that role played with budgeting. She said she's mindful of boundaries, but makes sure that they give periodic updates on the financial status of the county. And if the BOCC has questions, she makes sure to track down the information. So, I mean, I think they've got it figured out with their boundaries, and it's been well received. She did say there was a county administrator before her. Who was well liked and respected. He was there for many years. And then after he retired, she said there was a bit of backlash from other county elected officials, and that's when they named her official title Board of County Commissioners Administrator, not the county administrator. She's the administrator for the Board of County Commissioners. So that would indicate that her position did not control the assessor, the clerk, the treasurer. Yes, the elected officials. So, you know, there's pros and cons to it. I think if you can find the right person and put the boundaries in place, it would work. Or it may not. I don't know.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
I also did some research on my own, and I reached out to the county clerks across the state, and Teton County in particular answered my questions, and she attached the county administrator job description. She also says, we've restructured this position in our chart, changing the job description as the county saw it had too much power and too many direct reports. As far as the budget was concerned, our former county administrator gave a recommended budget to the BOCC on just her departments, not the electeds. This year, without the county administrator, the recommended budget came from the electeds and directors working together on putting that recommendation to the BOCC together at my encouragement to cut what they deemed they could instead of having me or the BOCC do it.
Interesting. I don't know if Danielle has that job description, but can you forward it to her and to us?
if I'm understanding correctly, this was the previous one and they've restructured it and she didn't give me an updated one, so.
Oh,
The last one I have is from 2020, and when we had spoke to the county administrator, it was the beginning of 2023, when we spoke to her
This
about
one
this
says
position.
April of 2023.
Okay, so it's
that-
been
do you have
updated
that one?
since. No,
Okay.
it's been updated since.
well, I think that the reason, we've talked about it before, and the reason it's come back up again is that sometimes it feels like some things are slipping through the cracks. And I don't feel that's because of a lack of time on my part. And I think the commission just in general is working hard, and I think our department heads are, and I know our elected officials are, and, but I think the bottom line is, for me, you know, are we structured in the way that best serves the public now and into the future? Because I don't see this as a short-term thing. I'd hate it if we rushed into something and then 15 months later said, never mind. And so I want to avoid that at all costs. Commissioner Friel, you have your light on.
No, I was just waiting my turn.
It's your turn.
Oh, great. Well, no, you're having this discussion here. I was waiting for my commissioner comments unless you're ready for that.
I'd like to stick to.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm not sensing any burning desire for other questions or comments. You know, Madam Clerk, your thoughts as an elected official, if you have any at this point. Mr. Sheriff, you've been here patiently. If you had any thoughts, just for, even if it's just data points, not necessarily conclusions, but you can sure weigh in on this now or in the future or both.
Mr. Chairman, I think if this conversation continues, I would certainly like to have a sit down with all of you and get some of my questions answered as to why some of you feel the need to have this and what it would look like. I mean, the logistics of it, I'd like to gain more information. It does concern me a great deal, obviously, because a lot of these job descriptions talk about budget. I am the chief budget officer. That's clearly in statute. So, you know, I do have concerns about roles and placement and that type of thing, but I would like just some questions answered. I think if you guys, you know, look at it further, then I would certainly love to have a conversation about it.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I didn't plan on speaking on this topic, but since you brought it up, you know, I agree with Madam Clerk. I think there's certainly some conversation to move forward with. I'm certainly respectful of all the things that the Board of County Commissioners has to do. But, you know, also as just a citizen, a taxpayer, and a voter, I believe that government should be close to the people. And so certainly I would be wary of passing on any of those authorities to somebody who's appointed. I think the elected officials represent their constituents as close as possible, and those decisions are made as close as possible to the people. And if you build layers of authority that's appointed in between the people and the elected officials, I think that's a point of concern. But certainly I'm respectful for all the decisions and duties that the commissioners have, and, you know, the need for some help in organizing and making sure things get done. But certainly be willing to continue that conversation as you move forward. Thank you for the opportunity.
Great. Okay, thank you all. Commissioner Friel, Commissioner Roundtable, go ahead.
Great. No, I just wanted to go back. So I see September 17th, you have the Casper carbon capture on the, as part of a discussion point. I believe, because you're talking about, you know, they gets injected back into the ground and potentially contaminating water, but in our conversation with them, isn't it like 3,500 plus feet down? Yeah, so it's quite a ways down that they're injecting these. The plume is going to be quite a ways down in the ground. So I just want to bring that up to you. And then the only other question I had is same date. I noticed this might be for Madam Clerk. It looks like the tavern liquor license is back on the docket again. Is that same people wanting to do the?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Frill, that is another go at transferring the tavern to BFS. That is correct. This is round 2.
Same group?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, that's all I got.
Excuse me, gentlemen, I want to make one small comment. I did attend the open house that we were all invited to at the Mormon LDS Temple. And they took us on a tour, and it's beautiful inside. It really is. It's a very impressive structure, and the way that it's put together and what some of their beliefs are you'd have to make your own judgment, but I thought it was all very well done and very beautiful, and I know it means a lot to people in that faith. And they're saying there's over 10% of the population of Wyoming are LDS, and the people there were lovely and very helpful, and it's a very nice addition to the city of Casper, in my personal humble opinion.
Nada.
So I do appreciate that the carbon capture would be stored in formations that are deeper than the vast majority of groundwater. I think the concerns are whether the geology has any unique characteristics that allow it to migrate not just out but up and over the course of time, and including, you know, things like earthquakes or you know, tremors. That kind of stuff can happen, and I think there are examples of that happening, not in Wyoming that I'm aware of. Our family has a water well that's 9,000 feet deep, and it's an incredible water well, and it's a resource that you know, we think is valuable, and if we're not thinking ahead for the public, and whether it's residential or industrial or commercial uses, that, hey, there might only be 300-foot water wells out there today, and that's all they're ever going to be. There are people all the time that have unique ideas and they might want to drill 5,000-10,000 feet deep. And so if and when they do, in my humble opinion, if there's a plume underneath there that constricts or impedes their ability to utilize their land, or what's underneath the surface of their land, then I'm not sure that's entirely fair to them. So if they have a deal with the developer that's putting the plume underneath them, whether it's 60 feet or 6,000 feet, fine. But I don't want to draw an arbitrary line and say, well, most groundwater wells are not that deep, and so there's probably no issue. To me, we ought to allow the public to have some dialogue. That's all. I would just report that we have had some meetings with the Collective Health Trust. We have been receiving a few emails from Mr. Porter on things that they're doing. We have a Memorial Hospital Board of Trustees meeting on the 16th. It'll be kind of an organizational meeting. And all the commissioners are invited. Commissioner Laird and I are gonna make that. So that's kind of the report as it relates to Natrona County Health. And I'm sure there will be more in the near future. The we had, I think you're aware that we had requested that Wyoming County Commissioners Association become involved in the pending Wyoming Supreme Court case on local government control. They are moving forward with counsel in that respect.
That's the one from Teton County.
That's the one from Teton County. There's a really short time frame within which to file an amicus brief, and so we're not even sure if they're going to be able to get that done, but they do have counsel working earnestly on it. At some point, I'd like to see this commission contribute some funds, and I'm thinking between $1,000 and $5,000 to legal counsel, since we were prepared to go down that path. That's not an ask today, but I expect that I will feel like we ought to contribute some financial amount of money to that effort.
I agree. Do you know who the legal counsel is?
I do.
Who is it?
It's Crawley Fleck. And I
Probably get an extension.
it's not provided for under the rules, but I guess maybe they could ask. That's all I have. Heather, I think that Michael Brown was also going to follow up with you on the biathlon, and I think the ball was kind of in their court on a couple things, and maybe, I'm not sure if it's in legal department's court, but Michael was wondering, just because, are we going to have a grooming agreement or not? And it's only September 3rd, but time flies.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I believe that Mr. Holster was going to get back with me on some, with more information. I haven't heard back from him yet, but I have other items to discuss with him, so I'll be in touch with him on that particular
Has a
issue as well.
decision been made whether to pay the guy or not?
No, we haven't made that decision yet. Okay, we are adjourned. Do we have executive session items tonight? Okay.